recently I've been thinking, you know what, a lot of these videos out there maybe forget to mention a few realities of going down the DIY route for quality hi-fi. I just want to share with you guys some of the reasons why I feel some people should not go the DIY route, and then we'll talk a little bit of why it's great going down the DIY route. Welcome back to the Hi-Fi Cave. It's a gorgeous evening, so why not record from outside? Besides, nice and hot summer evening. Not quite summer yet, but by the time you guys see this, it might be. So yeah, I figured why not come outside, sit in the garden, make a little campfire, enjoy the gardens, enjoy the tree frog symphony. DIY. Should you? Should you not? Because you can look at all these videos on YouTube, mine included, and the whole notion that, A, you can build this for $1,000 and it rivals speakers that are $10,000, $20,000, $100,000. Well, it's never that simple. It really isn't. Because when you're going down the DIY route, there's research involved. That's time. You're going to spend time. You got to factor that in. You're going to experiment. You're going to learn how to use certain tools. You're going to scrap some materials. So, once you know exactly what to do, how to do it, and you already know that the driver or the drivers you're using will work well with the build and design that you're tackling, sure, cheaper. But it's not for everyone. So, first thing, why not? Well, it's more work. It really is. It's more work. And more work means more costs. Because all it takes is human error, mistakes with the materials you're using to build this stuff. And trust me, I've done it. I've messed up pieces of wood. I've scrapped pieces of wood that I couldn't use anymore because I made a mistake with the router, made a mistake with the saw. As they say, measure twice, cut once. If you're not a professional woodworker, it's more like measure 6 times, then measure 3 more times, then take all those measurements, call your dad, ask him to measure as well, and then cut. Because you will scrap. If it's your first DIY project, you will scrap materials. And mistakes do happen when you are manipulating the drivers. Some of these drivers are heavy. Sometimes it's not that simple to mount it inside the cabinet, or mistakes do happen. So you got to factor that in. So that adds to the costs. The other thing is, if you're getting brand new drivers, again, you're not following a predetermined formula. You're experimenting. You're going your own way. Drivers brand new need to break in. So you get the drivers. Sure, you could build your cabinet or your baffle before you have the drivers. Usually measurements are available online for the drivers you want to acquire. But your best bet, if you're not a pro at this, wait till you actually have the drivers in hand so you can properly do your pre-measurements and get a feel for if you want the driver flush mounted or you're going to want it back mounted, depending on what you're doing. So that's one thing. So you got to factor in the time it takes for the driver to get to you. And usually warranty or the return period starts when the driver is shipped. So factor this in for time. You order the driver. It takes a few days to get the driver. You take a few days to work on your build. You then take a few days to test your build with the driver in it, but the driver's not broken in. So it's going to sound odd. And at first, you're probably not going to know if the oddities are from the break-in or from your build. So you're going to want to let the driver break in for a good period of time. Days, weeks go by. You're going to try your build again. there's going to be things you're not going to like on your first build, so you're going to have to retweak it. You might have to reacquire more materials. Tip for you guys doing it for the first time: your first build, don't use high quality and expensive materials. Get a feel for it. Use cheap stuff. Use plywood. Use MDF. That's what you use to get your first builds going, because your first build is a learning experience, right? You're going to want to readjust things. You might even change designs completely. So keep that in mind, because the time you take to receive the drivers, build, test, break in, test again. If you're not happy, you're going to want to rebuild again, create something else, try the tests again. And by that point, over a month could have gone by. Will you still be able to return the driver? You got to keep that in mind, because then you're stuck with the driver. Or worse, you do several builds and you realize the sonic characteristic of the drivers you bought is not what you want. It's not the flavor you're looking for. So you're probably going to not use those drivers. So if you can't return them, sure, you can try selling them on the used market. But that brings me to the third reason why DIY is not always a great thing. Resale value of hi-fi gear that is DIY is not good. It is not. Compared to buying a known popular brand of high-end speakers, your risk is significantly less to going the DIY route. Sure, it'll probably cost you more upfront, but you got to remember that if you realize you don't like the speaker, possibly the dealer or the manufacturer has a trial period, so you're safe. Even if you keep the speakers for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, well, you could resell it if you get fed up or want to go a different route or you want to upgrade on the used market, and you will regain a good chunk of your money. You're not going to get it all back, but you will get 50% and up in most of the known popular brands. Most of them, assuming you keep it in good condition. Let's see my notes. Fourth point of why not is anything that has to do with warranty on the drivers. Now, yes, manufacturers honor their warranties. However, look at the fine print on some of these warranties, and a lot of these warranties, when it comes to selling individual drivers, have a lot of fine print. If it's deemed that you cause damage to the driver from your manipulation, from your a bad amplification, there's a list. And I'm saying this not because I've had issues. I've had no issues whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it's been the opposite experience for me. I only had one defect in all the drivers that I've had, and the manufacturer, in this case Lisong, for me, replaced it right away. So I had good service with that. That being said, I know some people in the DIY route that struggled with some of the drivers that they purchased, and one of them even had to fight quite a bit to have the warranty honored, because the manufacturer kept claiming that it was due to his manipulation and his mistakes, which it wasn't. This was a long fight. It took a few months, and he actually made the manufacturer realize that a lot of their drivers were not passing quality control. There was a lot of issues. But that took dedication and patience on his part. A lot of people I know would not have had the patience, would have said, oh, well, take the loss. Too bad, never doing this type of project again. But that sucks. So keep that in mind. Yeah. And really, guys, like I mentioned, the resale value for DIY gear, it's not good. Speakers is one thing. Acquiring DIY amplifiers, anything that's electronics, especially amplifiers, on the used market, if you're a buyer, caution, because you hope that the builder of the amplifier and the designer did their job properly. Because compared to a full-on retail production amplifier, companies are subject to serious quality controls. They are subjects also to certifications to ensure that their amplifiers meet all electrical code, so that an amplifier doesn't freaking catch on fire. So when you get going down the DIY route when it comes to amplifications, do your homework. Make sure that you are getting something that is built according to the right standards, because it could be dangerous. So think about this. So if you're building an amplifier thinking you're going to just resell it, careful. Because if you made a mistake, last thing I would want if I made an amplifier is have someone call me 3 weeks after that and saying their living room caught on fire because of my amplifier. Ooh, how does that work? Don't know. Wouldn't even want to dare think about that. Okay, this might be a little over dramatization of what could happen, but you got to keep that in mind. You're going the DIY route. So yeah, so this first part here is like I'm discouraging you guys from going the DIY route because it's not for everyone. And when I'm saying this, it's not for everyone because, like, I have some people that ask me my advice and like they've never done a DIY build before, they'd like to try this but they're not sure, and maybe they be better off buying the set of speakers. Look, everyone has their own way. My reflex tends to be with people is, if you're asking me, it's because you're not very comfortable going the DIY route. So yeah, you could try it, but if you're starting this journey not comfortable, I know you're going to come across headaches, speed bumps, and the first version, maybe 2, maybe 3 versions, are not going to sound as good as you're expecting it to be. Now, hold on. You could be going a DIY route where you are given exact specs of what to do. I'm not talking about a kit, but you're told by someone you trust and you know exactly the dimensions, exactly the drivers, and you're just going to learn woodworking and all that stuff. Power to you. So people who reach out to me and are like, hey, I already bought the drivers, I already done this, I was thinking of this, maybe I should try this height or that height or this thickness, then different ballgame. I'm like, yeah, sure. Because I can already tell that these types of people are already all in with the managing the risks that are involved with doing this type of project. So yeah, for sure, then I'm like all in to want to help them. But if I had sent someone who's hesitant and not sure, I don't feel right actually pushing someone to go into the DIY route if I don't feel like they sound like they're ready. There's a lot of great speakers people can buy out there. A lot of great speakers. Yeah, so anyways, back to selling your DIY stuff. Be very careful when it comes to electronics, amplification. All right, so why go into DIY? Simple. It just freaking sounds better. Thank y'all for tuning in. Okay, that's not the end. Reasons for doing DIY is that it's fun. If you're curious, you want to experiment, you want to learn, DIY is the way to go. Okay, again, I say learning and experimenting. You're not gonna want to experiment too much if you're building your first amplifier. Be careful. So if you're going down the DIY amplifier routes, my advice is try not to die, because some of these tube amps, man, I can tell you, it's a lot of voltage in there. Go ask some of the other YouTube channels that play around with DIY tube amplifiers. Mistakes are painful. But if you're just building speakers, totally safe. The main reason, I think, to actually go the DIY route, if you're the right fit, if you're the right type of person for it. And the right type of person to me is you have to have an appetite for taking a risk. It's a risk. It's a financial risk. It could be a health risk because you're dealing with tools and components that could be dangerous. But the rewards can be amazing. Absolutely amazing. In fact, for a lot of people, this is probably the only way or route that they could achieve super high-end performance with their hi-fi gear. Why? Because they'll be able, with a bit of luck, a bit of patience, perseverance, right curiosity. And why I say luck, because the people you're going to work with or learn from, not everyone's the same. So if you're lucky a little bit and you happen to have a really good mentor or good partners to really help guide you into this stuff, you are going to be able to flirt with equipment that is going to rival amazing gear, amazing commercial gear. And you could even come across, without you being a DIYer yourself, you could come across others that are DIYers that are simply using a design of an existing product that exists from an existing designer and just choose to maybe upgrade a few components here and there that a production model would not be able to do because they can't maintain their price point. Like, you can upgrade the capacitors, you can choose to max out the quality and type of transformers you're going to use. Heck, you can also put in ultra high quality and expensive fuses. Fuses. It's just a joke for one of the other videos that Thomas and Stereo made about my system. But in all honesty, the DIY route can lead to absolutely incredible results. Can it compete? It more than competes. It can humiliate a lot of commercial gear. And it's normal. But that being said, thinking it's accessible to everyone, that's the illusion to me. It's not accessible to everyone. Because when things go wrong with DIY gear, if you're not a tinkerer and you're not good with this kind of stuff, it can be very frustrating. Really, it is. Because to bring a DIY amp to a repair shop, it can create problems. Some repair shops won't even touch it. Like I said, none of the DIY gear goes through certification and quality control at a commercial level that is backed by a liability insurance. Yeah, no. Most DIY is not. So that's why I'm telling you, it's risky, but the rewards are potentially very high. So that's the DIY. Just a nice, again, little simple video by the fire in my gardens at night, listening to the frogs. It's just spectacular. And
Sure, you won't get electrocuted by your speaker. Electricity won't kill you by speaker, but you can lose a finger.
And
Routers, jigsaws, table saws, all this stuff in the wrong hands can also be dangerous.
And
I guess we can argue for a while what's worse. Making a mistake with a router or making a mistake with a tube amplifier.